Dr. Tan. Thank you. Wow, you're all looking really fabulous. It's a really good view from here. So maybe next year you'll be in my shoes. So I'd like to start off just by sharing a little bit about my story, and just like the other people have done before me, just, you know, kind of giving you a little bit of a flavour of how come I'm standing here today. So, I don't know if you're anything like me, but when I was so high, I had a dream and an aspiration of what I wanted to be when I grew up. So for you, maybe that was to be, I don't know, a doctor, a soldier. I guess you didn't want to be coaches because I don't think coaching was really around then. But you probably spent a lot of time in imaginary play, acting out and pretending what you were going to be when you grew up. So, like probably you did, I had a dream as well. And you could always find me, I was always playing with my dolls. Typical female, girly little thing to do. But for me, that was what my dream was. All I wanted to do was to have a family and be a mum. I didn't have great big aspirations. I didn't want to be that scientist or that astronaut or something like that. I just was very, very simple. I just wanted to be a mum. So here's a photograph of me. I was an only child. I didn't have brothers and sisters. And I can remember one day saying to my mum, "Mum, I'm a lonely child, aren't I?" I did, honestly. And she turned around and she reprimanded me, actually. She was quite curt about this. And she actually said, "Alison, no, you're not a lonely child. You're an only child." But I still believe to this day that that's one of the reasons why my dream was to have a family, because I was missing that experience. I felt as if something was missing, because I didn't have brothers and sisters. And one of the reasons I put this particular picture on my slide was because this was me when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And I've got my school tie on. And every time I look at the picture, the little logo is on the tie. And the tie, sorry, not the tie, the logo reminds me of the school motto. And the school motto was, "Nil desperandum," never give in, never despair. And that's really stood me in good stead over the years. So anyway, when I was 21, I fell pregnant. Sorry, that's not a great photograph, but that's all I could find in the time that I was preparing for these slides. I fell pregnant, and I really thought at that moment that my dreams were going to come true. This was the start. I'm going to have my family, and it's all going to be absolutely wonderful. When Matthew, my son, was just 6 months old, I realised that the relationship that I was in wasn't going anywhere. It was pretty harmful. And the day the physical abuse turned to, the day the verbal abuse turned to physical abuse, I realised I had to get out of that relationship. Not just for me, but really more so for my son. So you can imagine, I'm sure you can, what kind of courage it takes to actually leave a relationship when things aren't going right for you. I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't know how I was going to feed my son. I just didn't know anything. All I knew was I had to get out of that relationship, and I had to get out pretty quick. So it was quite a tough time. I really felt at that point that my dreams were shattered. I never thought that I was going to have that family, because suddenly I'm a single parent. But it's funny because, you know, life can transform. Miracles do happen. And I'm really pleased to tell you now, I've got 3 additional wonderful daughters. I've just missed a huge part of my story out. As I clicked the slide, I just realised that I missed something out. Because what happened was, I met the most incredible man. I met another person so soon after I'd split up from my first partnership, my first relationship. And, you know, it was just really, really devastating at that point. And I never thought I was going to meet somebody else. And then it just happened. So that was like a first miracle. Never despair. Remember my school motto? No desperandum. So I met this wonderful man. And we fell in love. And we shared the same dreams. We had the same values and shared the same dreams. He also wanted a family. My gosh, I couldn't believe it. So maybe my dream of having a family was back on track. But the funny thing was, it appeared on the outside that everything was going to be wonderful. However, I fell pregnant. And then it was like my whole dreams were taken away from me, because not once, not twice, not 3 times, not even 4 times, but 5 times I lost babies. But then I did go on to have these wonderful 3 girls. And this photograph was taken just this year. So Lizzie Grace, Abby Louise, and Imogen. And when I had my youngest daughter, that's when I found coaching. And I'm so proud to be their mum, because that really was my dream. So what happens when you have fulfilled your dream? That's all I ever wanted. But if you remember when I told you when I was growing up, I knew that I was a very caring person. I knew I wanted to nurture. I knew I wanted to look after people. I came into coaching. I started thinking very much, what did I learn from that experience? When I was preparing for this presentation, I kind of wanted to pull that together for you and kind of just make you realise why I wanted to share my story. And that reason is because I learned so many lessons through the course of those 10 years. Kept losing babies over 10 years. Can you imagine how devastating that was? But what I really, really learned was about patience. I really learned to be patient with myself and patient with life. And I just love this little quote. Never think that God's delays are God's denials. Hold on fast, hold out. Patience is genius. So, as I said, let's bring you up to date now. That's a little bit about my background, my experience. That's how I kind of came to be standing here on stage today. But you know, there's one thing. I'm no different than any of you. So I started off by this presentation and I said, you know, it could be you standing here next year. It absolutely could. I'm no different than any of you. I'm not special at all. But the one thing that I learned from my experience was that I have a willingness. I have a willingness to learn and a willingness to be uncomfortable in order to grow. So let's just get back into January this year. I can remember in January having a coaching session with Kevin. And Kevin's been mentioned several times today. He's a fabulous coach and he's really, really made a huge difference in my life since I've been part of Platinum. But in January, we're on the telephone and I say to Kevin, I had my best year ever last year, Kevin. What on earth can I do to exceed that this year? I really don't know. I had no new ideas. I had absolutely no new ideas at all. And I just felt as if I could not expand my vision any more than what I was already doing. So Kevin was great. He listened to me, asked me a few questions, but we kind of ended the call. I hadn't really moved forward. And I was feeling really frustrated at this time because in here, I knew that I had so much more to offer. I absolutely knew in here that there was so much more. But I went off after the phone call and I decided to just continue doing the things that I was already doing. Now last year, Dan taught me very much about moving away from a one-on-one coaching model and to move into a group coaching model. He also taught me how to run events. And last year, I launched the Hampshire Winning Women Business Awards. So I focused all my energies in January this year into improving the VIP program. And I've got one of my clients, it's Karen actually, who's selling the books at the back. She's here in the room today. And I really focused my energies in improving that program, and I relaunched the Business Awards for 2011. All I knew was I wanted the awards to be bigger and better than they were last year. And again, I had no idea how I was going to actually achieve that. So, after we've just been listening to Judy May, we managed to get a lot of publicity for the awards this year. We were in our second year, but I had at least 3 radio interviews on BBC Radio Solent. I love radio, and in fact it was Judy May who inspired me the first time to try and get on the radio, and honestly it really is easy. So there's a photograph here of me and one of my judges and Katie Martin, who is the presenter on the afternoon show on BBC Radio Solent. We also had quite a lot of publicity in the local newspapers, and this is just an article that was in a business magazine just about a week ago. But not only did I get all the PR coverage, a lot of the winners from the awards did. And we'll see some pictures of the winners in a moment. So there I am, just really focusing my efforts on making this year's award ceremony much, much bigger. And here's some pictures from the awards, some pictures of the winners, the actual award, and it was a fabulous evening, you know. I did actually make the awards much, much better than the year before. And yeah, it was a fabulous evening, 111 women in the room. And this is what I'm really passionate about. I'm really passionate about women being able to celebrate their successes. You know, I really believe that you can have it all. I do believe that, you know, not all women, but many of us are mothers. And we can have a successful business as well. And I kind of want to celebrate that success. I also want to help celebrate women's personal achievements. Also the difference that they're making to the community, the difference they're making to the local economy. And to me, that's really, really important that women do receive the recognition they deserve. And it was kind of at the awards this year that I suddenly got this thing. I'm doing this in Hampshire. Why am I not doing it around the country? I haven't done that yet, but it's a part of the plan. This year I've also, Dan spoke earlier about the book, the challenge that he set us. So myself and 8 other people, we collaborated, as women tend to do, and we achieved that. We actually got our first book published and it's available on Amazon. I also created my first product, the Winning Women Formula. And this is just an audio CD series of 6 interviews that I have done with other womenpreneurs around the country. I actually interviewed Nadine, who was up here earlier. And one of the reasons I interviewed Nadine, because obviously she's got such an inspirational story, and she grew this list so quickly that I really wanted to be able to give hope and inspirations to other women so that they could actually do something like Nadine. I also interviewed Dawn Breslin. I don't know if any of you know her, but she's a life coach. She was the first female life coach on GMTV. And I also interviewed, as part of this series, Kirsty Henschel, who was the youngest contestant on Dragon's Den. Kirsty actually went on to win the backing of 2 of the dragons and also secure £65,000. So I kind of want to share these inspirational stories with women, and that's the product that I created. But it's not always a bed of roses. As Richard Wilkins was saying earlier, you know, you have your ups and your downs. Thank you. And I can remember earlier this year, one particular day, when I was just laid on my bed. I was curled up, actually. I wasn't laid there. I was curled up in a ball, and I was crying. I was just really disillusioned at that particular point, because I kind of felt I couldn't have it all. And this is what I really want women to be able to say that they can. I kind of felt as if my life was on hold for a little while. And that's because my husband works away at sea, and I've got a family. And sometimes it is difficult. But what I realised was I wasn't allowing myself to have the support that I really, really needed. But it's all a learning curve. So I've now allowed that support in. I've got a lot of help that's allowing me to do bigger and better things. And August, typically the month where most people take holidays, I really wanted to be spending as much possible time as I could with my girls, because obviously, as I said at the beginning, family is so, so important to me. In August alone, I made £30,000 in sales in just 1 month. And that's more sales than in the previous year. So I think that's a pretty good achievement. Not only that, if you remember what I said at the beginning of the year when I was on the phone to Kevin, I just couldn't think any bigger. I don't have any more dreams. I didn't know what to do. I've now got a global mission. And I can't really share all of that with you right now because there's not time. But just being in this group has really, really helped me to actually expand my awareness. And the one last thing that I'd just like to share with you, if I just go back to this one here. This is the beauty of being in the group. Because when you actually feel that times are difficult, your coach always believes in you. When you have that doubt in your mind, your coach always believes in you. And that's just so, so important. What's also really important is the other people within the group. There's always someone there to champion you on. There's always somebody to share ideas with. There's always somebody there to support you. And that, again, is just so, so important from masterminding and mixing with your peers. And then obviously, the other thing that's so, so important is Dan and the knowledge and the skills and the resources that he shares with us. Because I wouldn't have done any of this. I wouldn't have that big global mission now if it hadn't been for being in this part of this group. So thank you so much for listening. You've been a great audience. Thank you very much.